Hi everybody, I'm Becky Olaniyi and I'm a writer and accessibility advisor. I currently work with a company called Collaborative Future, and our ethos is spreading the method of CV-less hiring people without looking at their CV or any prior educational or workplace achievement. On that note, I will begin my talk about the recruitment process. The recruitment process is notoriously inaccessible. It's hard for any disabled person to get their foot into the door to the interview stage in the first place because the recruitment process is so difficult. Whether it's a difficult to complete form, restrictive logic tests, or downright discrimination in the job description, it is incredibly hard for a disabled person to get to the interview stage, let alone to the workplace. That's why Collaborative Future aims to promote the CV-less hiring method, a method which is disability inclusive and benefits all members of the workforce. The typical recruitment process consists of a person filling in a form with set questions that often have set answers that they're looking for that are structured in a certain way. After filling in that form, they may get a second phone call, or they may be asked to fill in a second form, or do some tasks, or be brought in for the interview. The interview process is where many applicants stumble. It's typically a sort of question and answer session where interviewers ask you questions similar to the ones that you've already answered on the application form and expect you to give a certain answer to display that you're the right person for them. This is problematic for everyone, but particularly so for disabled people who may have little work experience. If a recruiter asks you to tell them about a time when you did a certain type of job and uses that to judge you on whether you're suitable for their employment, that's not going to be helpful for people who haven't had any work experience whatsoever. Or if they ask you of a time that you've been in a leadership position, for somebody who's never been trusted with responsibility because of their disability, they may come across as someone who has not achieved anything, but that's not for want of trying. However, with the CV-less hiring process, we focus not on your previous work or educational achievements, instead looking at the answers that you gave to 3 questions asking you about yourself, your perspectives, and what you feel is meaningful in life. As well as this, you're expected to complete a project that you're given a certain brief for, and you're allowed to use any method you please for this project. I felt like that was very beneficial for me and would be beneficial for disabled people in general because people have a different range of disabilities. A lot of people struggle with speaking and answering questions quickly and thinking on their feet in high pressure situations, particularly people who have difficulties verbalizing their thoughts, which is why the use of a project is also a great way to assess somebody. A project that they've had time to create and has been a labour of love is going to be a better reflection of a person and their identity than their answer to a set of questions that can be answered using the STAR method that everybody uses. I think this is truly inclusive because it acknowledges that different people have different weaknesses, have different strengths, and have different needs, and different ways of processing and interpreting a goal. People have different wants, different needs, and different strengths and weaknesses. And it also shows that people have different ways of interpreting a brief, not necessarily with one being better than the other, but them all being different. Accepting people's individuality and their difference is the first step to making a truly inclusive workplace where everyone's needs are accounted for. There is indeed a segment of the interview that focuses on competency-based questions, but these questions are given to applicants ahead of time and you're allowed to prepare and think about your answers. This is also very accessible in that it gives you time to prepare yourself and think about how you want to best present yourself, as opposed to interviews where you're supposed to answer on the spot, and people have often been sent home for giving a wrong answer despite the fact that they would have been a perfect candidate for the job had they not fumbled on that one question. Typically, employers tend to avoid questions about access needs and the challenges that may come with your disability in the workplace during interviews. So the issue arises when you arrive at the workplace for your first day of work and you realize that everywhere is inaccessible and nothing has been done to modify these issues. This problem can be addressed by tactfully and sincerely asking applicants about any disabilities that they have, any access needs that they have, and making sure that the atmosphere is a safe space where people are willing to come forward and don't feel that their job could be jeopardized by sharing any access needs they may have. The best method is always to ask rather than to assume. People's first thought that may come to mind when they think of a disabled person is someone who is a wheelchair user or somebody who uses a cane. However, many applicants that you may come across may also have hidden disabilities that they did not feel comfortable disclosing on the form. So it's up to you as an organization or you as a recruiter to make your organization a safe space where people are happy to disclose. You should also encourage participants to disclose through the interview process without pressurizing them, just making it clear that if they do have any access needs, now is as good a time as ever to disclose them. In particular, people with hidden disabilities may find this more difficult as they may have the outer appearance of somebody who is what we conceive to be healthy and has no problems, but this may not be the truth. And this may also be off putting for employers, and they may have previously experienced a cold reaction from employers when disclosing about their disability, which may make them hesitant to disclose to you. All disabled people are different, and the disability group is one of the biggest minority groups in the UK, and anyone can become disabled at any time. And I think that is a crucial thing to keep in mind when dealing with employees and potential employees that have disabilities, that they are not so different from you. I think this is a crucial thing to keep in mind when dealing with employees, co-workers, or potential employers that have disabilities, that they are not so far from you and that their circumstances could be your circumstances in the blink of an eye. And that's why everybody should advocate for equal access needs, because you never know if it might be you that will need them next. Another major problem in the recruitment process is competency tasks. The quizzes and games that you're asked to complete under a set amount of time to show whether you'd be a suitable employee for a business often are designed to trip people up. This is particularly problematic for people with disabilities who may not be as capable of information processing as quickly as non-disabled or other disabled people with different disabilities. In reality, it is very unlikely that an employee would ever have to solve 5 cube puzzles in 5 minutes. So the use of these logic tests do not seem to be beneficial on a wider level. They just seem to be a way of an employee showing that they're capable of doing this task that they've practiced for weeks. That will never actually come to pass in the workplace. For me, I do not see how this is beneficial for anybody. I understand what the recruiter is going for by doing this, but things like this tend to alienate and exclude people who would have otherwise been great employers, but they have been put off by the traditional recruitment process. Having a project or a goal that we're allowed a set amount of time on to work on in our own personal time is so much better of a way to assess a potential employee than putting them under pressure in the tight space of an interview or in the tight temporal space of having to do an online quiz in a short amount of minutes. Moving on from the recruitment process into the actual workplace. Accessibility barriers in the workplace can be a huge problem that leads to people either not attempting to work or even quitting or finding work elsewhere because it's so inaccessible for them that it's not a possibility. Accessibility barriers in the workplace are a huge issue for many disabled people today. It is very difficult for people to disclose. especially for those with hidden disabilities. And disabled people in the workplace may feel like it's now too late for them to disclose after they've been working here for a few weeks or a few months. They just feel like they have to put up with the accessibility issues that they are facing. However, access needs can change at any point in time during life, and things as simple from refusing to provide a screen reader and refusing to fix wheelchair accessible toilets can alienate workers incredibly and can lead to poor work performance or even quitting or moving to a different department in the same company. Organizations need to be open to the changing access needs of all employers to make an inclusive and accessible workspace. Aside from structural issues, another big issue faced by disabled people on the journey to equality in the workplace is discrimination. This can be from higher ups or from their co-workers or from external partners that they're working with. I know that there are racial sensitivity and disability sensitivity workshops for employers in companies, but I feel that a lot of these give out the wrong information. Firstly, I feel like if it's a disability related workshop, they should be run by disabled people because lived experience is more important and more relevant than the potential opinions of somebody who has read disability theory from a book, and they cannot be applied in such a practical way. Lived experience is more important than that of somebody who has read disability theory from a book and is now giving advice. This can also open the floor for a safe space for non-disabled people and disabled people to have a discussion. A safe and open space where knowledge exchange is welcome, dialogue is free-flowing, and a comfortable atmosphere between co-workers and external workshop runners. Implementing these methods throughout the recruitment process and in day-to-day working life is key to having an inclusive workplace and making a workplace that allows everybody to work most productively as possible. Work is an incredibly important aspect of life for disabled people as it allows for financial security and financial independence, as well as potentially lowering social isolation. The world of work is just as important a societal aspect as all other aspects of society for disabled people to be involved in. The workforce will really benefit from removing the access barriers that prevent disabled people from going into work, as this will allow them to gain new talent and new perspectives. I hope from listening to this that you have a few ideas of changes that you can make in order to make the recruitment and work process more accessible. Or if not, it has at least given you food for thought and has given you something to reflect on. If that is the case, please take some time to think about what I've told you and think about how access needs and inability to access would affect you to further understand what people who are facing access barriers go through on a day-to-day basis and think about how you can mitigate that with your work.